So, at the beginning of this story, we see a girl named Dami. This girl seemed to be under a lot of stress. And for some reason, she wanted to disappear from the world. So she silently wished that she could vanish from the earth. But then, her eyes fell upon a puddle where rainwater had collected. And when she stood by the puddle and looked closely into the water, she saw some people wearing strange clothes in the water. Actually, Dami saw that these people in the water were praying for rain. They said that it hadn't rained in their village for the past 3 years. They were almost at death's door due to the drought. That's why, when Dami jumped into that water, she went straight to the place where those people were praying. And after seeing these people, Dami asked, "Are you guys shooting a movie about kings and queens here?" However, after seeing this, the real king here got really angry. And he angrily asked her, "How did you get here? Are you some kind of ghost?" But Dami said, "No, I'm not a ghost. I'm just a regular high school student." However, since Dami had traveled back hundreds of years from the future, the language had changed quite a bit by then. And from Dami's way of speaking, they thought that Dami might be casting some kind of spell. But after hearing all this, the people there got even more scared. So some soldiers surrounded Dami with swords. And when Dami realized these were real swords, she started making up a story. Because she was an expert at making up stories. She told them, "I understand why I'm here. I'm here so that I can bring rain." And as soon as they heard about rain, they all bowed down before her. And Dami told them, "I'll say a spell, which you'll repeat 50 times with your eyes closed." And when they opened their eyes after repeating Dami's nonsensical words 50 times, they saw that Dami had disappeared. Actually, Dami had escaped from there and gone to a place where many religious clothes were hanging. So Dami changed her clothes and blended in with the common people, going straight to the royal court. Here, the king explained to everyone that they didn't need to believe in any nonsense. They could only bring rain through math and science. Because besides that, they had no other way. But then, a priest here told the king that, actually, all these things are useless. This science, math, these are useless things. We can never understand nature through them. Actually, there's only one reason why it's not raining, and that is God is not at all pleased with the king. That's why the king, along with the queen, must perform a special ritual. Dami was also lying with them. But suddenly, she realized her cell phone wasn't with her. So when she came out to look for her phone, the king's special soldier, Saito, caught her. And he took her straight to the king. But by the time the king came to meet her, Dami was thinking that if it rained, she could go back home. But then she remembered, it hadn't rained here for 3 years. And after the king arrived, he said, "This girl tried to deceive us. She has no right to live." Saying this, when he tried to kill her, Dami pleaded with him, "Please forgive me. I didn't mean to do this to you. I'm just a young kid. I accidentally traveled from the future to the past. And I don't even know how I got here." Actually, when Dami saw death standing before her, she didn't know what to say. Actually, we learned that Dami is a high school student. And in a few days, she'll be taking her university entrance exam. But actually, she was really bad at math. I mean, whenever she tried to do math, she'd get sleepy. Sometimes, when math was taught in school, she'd even fall asleep in class. So her math teacher was really angry with her. One day, the math teacher called her and gave her a problem to solve. But when she tried to solve the problem, just like always, she couldn't do it this time either. That's why the math teacher humiliated her in front of everyone. After that, returning home, like every good student, Dami put on music on TV and started scrolling on her phone. But after listening to music for a while, her mom came and, like every mom, said, "If only you could remember your studies as well as you remember songs, you wouldn't be in this situation today. You're just like your father, completely useless." But Dami's mom also started watching a TV show herself after scolding her for a bit. However, Dami absolutely hated her mom's TV shows. So she left the room, called her friend, and went to meet her. But her friend also lectured her, saying, "This is your last chance to get into university. If you fail this time too, your life is over." After that, the next day, as soon as she woke up, Dami started running towards school. Because today was the exam she needed to pass to get into university. But before she left, Dami's mom stopped her and said, "If you do well on the exam, you'll definitely get into a good university. So there's nothing to worry about." But Dami was most worried about math. She was wondering if she would be able to pass math. That's why she was reading a book even while riding the bus. But as soon as she got off the bus, it started raining. She had forgotten to bring her umbrella in her hurry, so she was forced to walk towards school, getting soaked in the rain. But when Dami arrived in front of the school, she panicked a lot. That's why she started having a panic attack. So, fearing failure, she ran away from there. And when she was sitting in the rain, that's when she saw that puddle. And through that puddle, she came here. Now, to make the king believe that she came from the future, Dami started talking about various things regarding history. But the king didn't pay any attention to her words. So Dami told the king, "Actually, I'm really good at math." And after hearing this, the king lowered his sword, and he told her, "Prove it." After that, the king gave Dami a math problem to solve. And when Dami did the math, her handwriting was terrible. But looking at the diagram, the king understood it was the correct answer. However, after seeing this, the king was completely shocked. He said, "Our greatest mathematician here takes 2 to 3 days to solve this problem. And you did it in just 1 minute. Because of this, everyone started looking at Dami as if she were a genius. But actually, in the timeline she came from, she was the biggest dummy. And the biggest reason for this is that the people where Dami currently is can't even properly solve second-grade math. After this, the king made Dami an offer. He said, "You will teach math to the people of my country. And in return, I will figure out how to send you back to your world." Now, since Dami had no other option, she was forced to agree. And her first student was the king himself. And when Dami learned that the king couldn't even count, she was completely shocked. But the king also told her, "From now on, you have to be a boy. Because no matter where you come from, currently in our world, there are no female teachers." So now, since the king knew nothing, Dami started teaching him from the very basics. For example, first counting, then addition and subtraction, and so on. However, the king would soon have a math test. Actually, the king had made a bet with someone from a neighboring country, and this test for the bet would happen in a few days. But the king also threatened Dami, saying, "If I fail here, you will be punished." So Dami got very scared and started teaching the king very diligently. And Saito started playing background music from behind to help the king focus more on his studies. But then, when Dami saw that it was taking the king a long time to learn math, she slapped him on the head. However, after seeing this, Saito held a sword to her throat, because it was forbidden to even touch the king without permission. And she had slapped him, but then the king calmed them down. However, when he saw the queen approaching, he hid all the math papers. And he pretended as if he was learning music. So one day after that, when the king was eating, he noticed Dami was looking at him. So he offered her some food too. But Dami didn't like this food at all. But the king said, "The food is good. What's the problem here?" So Dami took him to the kitchen. Actually, she had a packet of instant noodles. And when she prepared these noodles and gave them to the king to eat, even though the king found them a bit too spicy, he really liked the food. Although Dami told him, "If it's too spicy, drink some water." But the king finished all the noodles without drinking water. So the next morning, everyone started running towards the king's room, because the king was screaming. And when Dami tried to go and check, she saw that a sticker had been placed on the king's forehead to remove the black magic that had been cast on him. But Dami removed his sticker and explained to him, "Actually, you just have a stomach ache. Since you ate spicy food and you're not used to it, that's why you have a slight stomach ache. Actually, you have a small problem with your stomach which will get better in a day or two. No one cast black magic on you." But then the king asked her, "My stomach?" Then Dami started teaching him about body parts. And then she tried to make the king hear his heartbeat. But the king couldn't feel anything. So Dami told him, "If you ever fall in love, your heartbeat will beat a little faster. Then you'll definitely be able to hear the sound." Actually, Dami had a lot more knowledge compared to the people of that time. That's why the king was also quite impressed. And he told her, "From now on, you will teach all our scholars. Not just math, but also science and agriculture." After that, the king gave Dami an orange to eat. So Dami thanked him and ate the orange. However, after seeing this, the king was completely shocked. He told her, "Do you know how much this fruit costs? You should have eaten it over 3 days. But then Dami said, "What's with all the drama? It was just an orange." After that, at night, the two of them started playing with a ball. and it had been many years since the king had run around so much. That's why the two of them enjoyed the night a lot, and they also became much closer to each other. Even after seeing all this, the queen was even feeling jealous of Danby. So when the king tried to explain to the queen, Danby, exhausted, came in front of them. The ball even fell from her hand, and she also collapsed due to extreme sleepiness. After seeing this, the king ran to help her. And when Danby woke up, she jumped up and started apologizing to the king. But the king told her, "Calm down. Nothing happened. Just forget everything." After that, the two of them went for a walk on the street. The king told her, "If you succeed in your mission, I will give you a high position in the royal court and even a horse as a gift." But Danby told him, "I don't need anything. When it rains for the first time, I'll go back home." But the king said, "Okay, fine. You go back home. But until then, don't think of me as the king, because we are equals." But the very next day, Danby had an accident. Actually, Danby was arrested for joking around with the king, and they caught her and started torturing her. They thought she was a boy. But then the king came and calmed them down, and he said, "This boy has more intelligence than all of you. He has more intelligence in his head than all of you combined." An old man here said, "If that's the case, then I'll test him myself." Then he told her, "Look, you have 2 weeks. If you can't bring rain by then, you'll be killed." Although Danby didn't know what to do, she didn't want to give up. She started calculating in various ways. Actually, she was trying to calculate when it would rain by measuring the amount of water in the air. And when she calculated carefully, she saw that there was enough water in the air, which meant it could rain very soon. And indeed, a few days later, it started raining. And in this rain, Danby found a puddle just like the one through which she had come to this world. She could have gone back to her world, but now she didn't want to go back without completing the king's work. She had built a machine to store rainwater and reuse it. Meanwhile, the king remembered that Danby would leave with the first rain, so he ran towards Danby's room. But here he saw Danby sitting in a corner, crying. And after seeing Danby's hard work, the king was impressed by her, and he placed his hand on her chest. And Danby realized the king's heart was beating very fast, which meant the king had started to love Danby. Meanwhile, the priest called Saito and told him to kill Danby. He said, "Perhaps she came from the future, and she might harm us." But Saito came to Danby and the king and told the king everything. He said, "There are people in the palace who want to kill Danby." That's why the king sent Danby with Saito to the forest, so that the attackers couldn't attack her. Meanwhile, the priest came to the king and started explaining, "Forget everything that boy taught you. We should follow our traditions." But the king didn't listen to the priest at all. He rode off on his horse to find Danby. On the other hand, in the forest, other attackers found Danby and Saito, and they started moving forward to kill them. But Saito put Danby on a horse and sent her away while he stayed behind to face them. And Danby, while escaping on this horse, came to a place where she didn't know which way to go. And that's when she remembered the king's words. The king had once told her that, actually, the sun rises from the direction you should go. And that's why she followed the sunlight and came straight to a place where the king was already waiting for her. After that night, they went to a very secret place and sat there, looking at the stars. Here, Danby told him that, in the future, we see a few fewer stars. But the king changed the subject and told her, "I've started to like you. Actually, I want to create a language that everyone can learn." And then Danby remembered something. So she took out a Korean note from her pocket. She realized that, in the future, her picture would be printed on Korean notes, which meant perhaps the king would do something that would greatly benefit the country. Anyway, after that, the next morning, when Danby woke up, she saw some women had come and started dressing her up like a queen. Danby didn't understand what was happening to her and what they would do after dressing her up. Later, we learned that these things were actually being done under the king's mother's orders, because she had seen Danby with the king. And at that time, their rule was that the king could keep several other women in the royal palace besides the queen. That's why Danby later learned that she was being dressed up to get intimate with the king, because once they did that, she would become the king's first girlfriend. However, after hearing this, Danby ran away from there to escape these crazy people. And when a maid went and told the king that Danby had run away, the king got very angry and started looking for her. And when he finally found her, He grabbed her hand and forcibly brought her to his bedroom. But here, Dami told him, "You told me we were friends. And don't try to force me. I'm still very young." But the king told her, "You're old enough, and I won't try to force you. Actually, these things are being done under my mother's orders. I have no say in this. But we are obligated to stay here, because everyone around is watching this room." After that, the next morning, Dami started talking with the musician. And he asked Dami, "Do you still want to go back to your country?" But Dami couldn't answer. She fell into deep thought. After that, at night, Dami saw a machine for counting days and months. She had also helped them build it. And through this, they would be able to accurately count days and months. However, after that, the king brought Dami to show her a special thing he had been working on for a long time. Actually, when Dami came here, she saw that the king had created some special letters that were very easy for common people to understand. And for all these things, he thanked Dami. He said, "If you weren't here, I would never have been able to do these things. So you also played a very big role here." After that, he brought her to the middle of the room, and seating her on a chair, he put a royal pin in her hair. Actually, it was their belief that when the king puts a royal pin in someone's hair, that girl gets married to the king. Then the king asked Dami, "Will you want to stay here with me forever?" But Dami directly refused him. She said, "I promise myself I'll go back to my world with the next reign, because I want to go to my mom. My mom can't live without me at all. Who knows how worried she must be. I don't know how she'll live without me." So the king said, "Okay, fine. You go to your world once and come back again. Then we'll live in this world forever." But Dami refused him again. She said, "Even if I wanted to, I couldn't come here. I have to stay in my world. I have to stay with my mom." Then the king got very angry and told her, "Yes, you should go back there, because people here are uneducated. No one knows how to read or write. No one is intelligent. Besides, diseases spread very easily here. You should stay in your world." Saying this, the king, very sadly, left from there. And when Dami saw the king in this state, her own heart felt heavy. But then someone attacked Dami from behind and set the entire room on fire. And when the king realized there was a problem, he ran and risked his life to save Dami. So the next morning, the king blamed everything on the priest and said, "You set that room on fire yesterday, and you tried to kill Dami, didn't you?" But the priest directly refused. He said, "I didn't do anything like that." But when the king checked his hand, he saw that there were still ink stains on his hand. So the king told him, "You can't even commit a crime properly. So why did you try to commit one?" Then he called Dami and asked, "Did you hear this man's voice?" Then Dami said yes. Actually, there was a book in Dami's bag which had saved Dami. So the king, extremely angry, asked the priest, "You knew very well how important these things were to me. So why did you do such a thing?" Then the priest knelt down and told him, "If a new language is created and it spreads among the people, then people will become educated and start using logic. And if that happens, they will create difficulties for you. It will become difficult for you to rule. Actually, I'm not afraid of death. I can give my life for the throne. But I was only doing these things for you." But then the king explained to him, "No matter how much you try to convince me, I will definitely educate the people of my kingdom. Now, at any cost. And what is there to fear about the future world that will come through this education? Why should we fear a world we won't even be in?" However, after hearing all this, the priest bowed his head and told the king, "Whatever punishment you give me, I will accept it." But a little while later, the sky became cloudy and it started raining lightly. So Dami said goodbye to everyone in the palace and got ready to leave. But then the king asked her, "Can I go a little further with you?" Then Dami said, "Of course." So the king took her on a horse to the edge of a lake. Actually, Dami could go back to her world through this lake. And when she jumped into the lake, she slowly started going down. And very soon, she returned to her world. She came out and saw that only a few seconds had passed. She could still take the exam, because the exam had just started. So she ran towards the school. And when she entered the classroom, she saw that the teacher was waiting for her, because the exam had just started. So she took the paper and started taking the exam. After that, when Dami returned home, she hugged her mom tightly after seeing her. Actually, Dami had completely changed now. Several months passed like this. One day, When Danby got off the bus, she saw that it was raining. But then a boy came and held an umbrella over her head. Actually, Danby noticed that this boy looked exactly like the king. And this boy told her, "You accidentally left your umbrella on the bus. If you do that, you'll get wet." Although Danby was completely shocked after seeing him, she was also happy inside. And at such an interesting point, this entire movie ends here.